Well, God has placed it on my heart to start a short series called You Are. And it's going to take us through who God says we are and what some of God's expectations of us are as well. And our reading this morning, we heard about the call of the prophet on Jeremiah and his reluctant response. And you know what? Like others this morning, I get it. I really do. Because when God calls us to something big, it can be really daunting. It can be really scary. It can be something that we can shy away from. Some people even try to ignore it because it just seems too big, too impossible. They don't even want to go there. I get it. My call to be a pastor, it wasn't one of those times that God said to me, Adam, you will be a pastor. Because we know that God speaks to us in so many other ways to that. When Annette and I moved to Nambucca Heads and I entered into a chaplaincy role, I started studying a Bachelor of Ministry, and it was at that point that people were starting to look at me and how I served and how I interacted with people, and they started telling me, Adam, you have a pastor's heart. You're going to make a really good pastor one day. And I can tell you, my first response to that was, no. Well, you think that I can lead a church? You think that I can teach and lead and equip God's people? You think I want that? No way. I don't want that. I don't want to be answerable to God for that. I don't want that responsibility. I felt so inadequate, so ill-equipped for that responsibility. And then more and more people started to say it to me, and so my attitude started to change. Until one day someone said it to me again, and I just took it to God and I said, Lord, people keep saying this over my life. If this is what you really want from me, I'm going to leave it with you. And if this is what you really want from me, then you will create an opportunity for that to happen without me even looking for it. Because I don't want to push my way into it. I don't want to look for the opportunity, because if I go into that with the wrong heart and the wrong motivation, all it's going to do is just cause hurt to God's people, and I don't want that. So for a few years, I left that with God. And then that's exactly what he did with it. Annette and I moved to Mount Gambier completely in faith. God had very clearly called us to be there. We had no idea why. And we started going to a church there, and one of the families that we met there, this guy who we barely even knew, he came up to me one day and said, I don't know why, God's placed it on my heart. It's my mission to find you a job. And he listed all these jobs, and I thought, no, none of that really sits well with me. And then he said to me, have you ever thought about being a pastor? And I said, well, there's that opportunity. I didn't go looking for it. Lord, I'm going to look into it. And that's how pastoral ministry in Mount Gambier started. So I get it. I get the hesitation to accept what God is calling you to do. But as we look through the call of Jeremiah this morning, we will see that we can have full confidence in our sovereign Lord, because it is God who calls us. It is God who equips us. And it is God who strengthens us as we go. Now, Jeremiah, he came from a priestly family. So serving God in the role of a priest would have been something that he would have already seen growing up. It would have been something that was already modelled to him. And from the start of the chapter, we can put together this call happened around 626 BC, so before the Babylonian exile. So having set that scene, the chapter jumps right into the call of God. And we've heard in Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 4 to 6, the word of the Lord came to me saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Alas, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am too young. I don't know about you, but the first thing that jumps off to me there is that he's saying that he doesn't know how to speak, but he can tell God that he's picked the wrong guy. I find that amusing. Now, those of you, we've heard a little bit around this theme this morning, and Psalm 139 writes, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well." To be fearfully and wonderfully made speaks of the care and the attention that God put into crafting you and creating you. We are all different and unique, every single one of us. There is and always will be only one Annette, and there is and always will be only one of me as well, and Annette breathes a sigh of relief. You see, the word here is that you are not just another human being. You are a work of art by God who created everything. That was true for David. That was true for Jeremiah. And it's true for every single one of you as well. Just think about that. The God who created everything, he knew you before you were created. And he didn't create you by accident. He didn't create you for nothing. He created you for a purpose. Before you were formed in the womb, God knew you. Before you were born, you were set apart. And you were created unique because God has a unique U-shaped calling on your life. For Jeremiah, he had a big task. He was to deliver God's message of judgment over the nations and the kingdoms, that Babylon was going to come from the north like a boiling pot to be poured out over the people of the nation. But before Jeremiah even knows this purpose, he pushes back. I'm too young. I don't know how to speak. It's already been touched on this morning, but what are some of the reasons that we give to God for not wanting to do what he is calling us to do? Is it that we do feel that we're too young? Or that we're too old? Is it that we've been there and done that and now we're going to leave it to someone else to have their go? Is it that we're too busy? Or that we feel that we're too tired? Is it that we feel that someone else might be better suited than what we are? Is it feel that we're not good enough? We're inadequate? We're not well enough equipped? And as I said, I get it. In all of those situations, just know that God is calling you because you are created by him for that calling that he has placed in your life. And whatever he calls you to do for him, he will also equip you for as well. We pick up from verse 7. But the Lord said to me, "Do not say I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord." Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, "I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant." God respectfully acknowledges Jeremiah's objection. He doesn't necessarily rebuke Jeremiah. He doesn't necessarily tell him off. But he basically says, I see your objection, and it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because God is commanding him to go and commands him to do what he is calling him to do. And he gives him that most common command in the Bible: do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, because God promises to be with him and to rescue him. Now again, he doesn't quite know what the extent of this call is. But if God says, I promise to be with you and I will rescue you, you're probably going to start thinking to yourself, what is this calling that he's placing on my life? What is he going to ask me to do? Anything that God calls us to do can have an element of danger to it. Yes, it can be a physical danger in the case of missionaries or those who are serving God in places where there's real persecution and risk to physical health and life. But there's also an eternal element of danger, because we know that what we do here has an eternal difference as well. But God says, do not be afraid, because he is with us and he is equipping us. How did he equip Jeremiah? He reaches out his hand and touches his mouth. And in doing that, he has not only symbolically given Jeremiah authority and the words to speak, but he is cleansing Jeremiah for what he is called to do. God cleanses and equips Jeremiah for the job that he has to do. He has given authority over the nations and kingdoms to uproot and to tear down, destroy and overthrow. The uprooting and the tearing down and destroying and overthrowing, however, was in preparation for something new to come. A garden is weeded and old plants are uprooted. Tall trees are torn down in preparation to plant a new garden. The nation of Israel in its sinful state needed to be overthrown and destroyed so they could be rebuilt. That is a big and dangerous job. Often God calls us to something that seems so big and so impossible that we feel inadequate, unable, unqualified. But that's when God equips us. I was sharing with a few people last Sunday about how God called Annette and I to move from Ballarat to Nambucca Heads. That was the first big interstate move that God had called us to do. And it was a move that, in a worldly perspective, made no sense whatsoever. We were struggling financially. So to move didn't make sense, and especially to move interstate and so far away. We had built a house that we were comfortable in and we thought was going to be our forever home. To move meant that we'd have to leave our families in a different state, and they didn't understand it. They were completely perplexed about what was going on. But the biggest hang-up was this. I had applied for one of 2 part-time positions as a chaplain, something that I neither had that much experience in and I certainly wasn't qualified for in any way. Yet God had called us to move, and for me to serve in a way that I had not served before. And when I went up for the interview, they said that they were so impressed that I didn't even make it back home before they were calling me up to say, hey, we were so impressed with your interview. We want to offer you the position. But there's one condition. We want to combine the 2 part-time positions into a full-time position and offer you the entire role. Now, this isn't to boast about me at all, because trust me, this had nothing to do with me. I doubted and I stumbled and I fumbled my way through it. I applied for that position thinking, I don't even stand a chance. This is not to boast about me. This is what God did, and this is what God does. God called. God equipped. God made a way. So God might not be calling you to leave the Oval. He certainly might not be calling you to go deliver a message of destruction to the nations and to the kingdoms. But God is calling you to do something. Many of you are already serving God in the way that God has called you. Others might be hesitant to start or don't yet know what that call is, and the key word there is yet. Sometimes we find ourselves in a season where we don't know what we need to be doing. Sometimes we go through seasons of different experiences and we don't know why it's happening. But it's actually shaping you, equipping you for the bigger picture, that part in God's story that you are a key part of. In those times, it's important not to be passive, but to continually seek God and his will, reflecting on with him what he wants you to learn and gain through that season or those experiences. There are a few reasons why God might not have revealed your call just yet. It could be because you're not ready for it. It could be that other people aren't ready for you. For others who are already serving in your calling, keep going. Don't stop. Don't become complacent or too comfortable. We need to always be finding a way to refine what we to do better, to be more accountable, to be more teachable. Because we never know everything. We never come to that place of arrival. We can always be doing better. And this leads me to that last point, that God strengthens us. We read in verses 17 to 19, "Get yourself ready. Stand up and say to them whatever I command you. Do not be terrified of them, or I will terrify you before them. Today I have made you a fortified city, an iron pillar and a bronze wall to stand against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, its officials, its priests, and all of the people of the land. They will fight against you, but they will not overcome you, for I am with you and will rescue you." It is God who strengthens us. It is God who made Jeremiah a fortified city, strong and surrounded by walls that were not easily penetrated or broken. It is God that made him an iron pillar. Iron was a strong and valuable metal, meaning that Jeremiah would have been strong and unwavering, being able to stand up to the challenges and the pressures that he would face. It was God who made him a bronze wall, meaning that God empowers him to stand firm against those who would oppose him and his message. It's protection against physical and spiritual attacks. That sounds pretty strong, doesn't it? That's what our God does. That's his strength that he can give us. And that's his strength that he protects us with. Now, there's a bit of a theme here that I need to cover, and that is, what does it mean to fear God? When we think about fearing God or the fear of God these days, I think a lot of the time it can be reduced down to a respect of God or an awe of God. But it's actually deeper than that. I liken the fear of the Lord to being pulled over by the police or a random breath test. You know, you've done nothing wrong, but you see those red and blue lights flashing behind you, you hear the siren. What starts happening? Your mind goes into overdrive. You think, was I speeding? Did I not give way when I was meant to give way? What if one of my tail lights are out? Have I paid my registration? Is my license valid? Have I renewed my license? Then something else starts happening. Your heart rate goes quicker. Your breathing gets faster and a little bit more shallow. Then you start to sweat a little bit. And you know you've done nothing wrong. All along, you've done nothing wrong, but the very presence of a person who has such authority that they can literally take your freedom away puts you enough on edge that you are aware of their presence and respectful enough to do whatever they tell you to do. That is what a healthy fear of the Lord looks like. God said to Jeremiah twice, "Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and I will rescue you." Then he said, "Do not be terrified of them, or I will terrify you before them." Jesus, when he was about to send out his disciples, he said, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body and cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell." If we are serving God, then the command is not to be afraid. And the way that we learn not to fear others is to have our healthy, respectful fear in God instead. Now, I don't often do this, but I want to finish off with a quote. Bible commentator Chris Wright says, "Fear is real and nothing to be ashamed of. Jesus feared the cross and shrank back from it. as any sane human being would. But his greater fear was that he might fail to do the will of God, his Father. For fear is undoubtedly one of the most potent obstacles to obedience. In Jeremiah's case, his understandable fear would be directed to them, the people to whom he was being sent with the unpalatable word of God. The only antidote to that kind of fear of other people was obedience to the simple command of God not to fear them and to trust in the immediately following promise. And that immediate following promise was a promise that God is with you and will rescue you.